posted a lot today. I didn't have the time to get it, and I'm kind of
That's a 200 text messages just to not overrun.
yeah. I feel, yeah. But the thing is, you know, we could, like, we could do another event and just show them on history. Just get people.
Let's do this one.
Yeah.
Let's get through this.
And then what we might do is modify it. Just come in and record it without. John, has it started?
Yeah, let's go.
Todd, you about ready? All right, we're going to start. So I'll introduce you then. Okay, welcome. Welcome everybody here and everybody around the world that's joining us tonight. We appreciate you being here. My name is Pete Tangway, and I'm the owner of Rock Pond Pros. It's a company that is focused on impacting people locally, globally. And my belief is that when we become a global citizen, we really are more impactful in our local place. And so we do initiatives, and one of them is the Max event venue where we are tonight. And this is a venue that has the best sound, the best lighting, the best connectivity so that we can connect with the world for these kinds of evenings. Another initiative that I started is My Heart for Ukraine. And on February 24th, 2022, the world changed. Russia invaded Ukraine. And I felt that with a company like Rock Pond Pros, I had to do something. And so through my sister, I connected with an artist in Kiev, a group of artists that decided not to leave. And we started, we developed these cards, and they sent us their art digitally. And you can buy those cards tonight. It's My Heart for Ukraine cards. They're in the back. If you're on the live stream, you can go to myheartforukraine.com and buy them. And anybody that donates tonight, you'll get 6 of those free. It's a little packet. But when I was doing that, I was thinking, how do I connect to somebody locally? And I remembered that Katya was a friend that I'd made through the Conway Area Leadership Institute. And she's from Ukraine. And I called her, and we had a great conversation. And so we thought we would start tonight by having Katya come up and just really set the stage with a personal message of somebody from Ukraine. Before we talk about cars for Ukraine, let's hear from Katya about just about her experience in Ukraine. And she's also the professor at Central Baptist College, and she's very involved in our community. She's on the Conway Court Board. So Katya, tell us a little bit about Ukraine so that we can kind of start this evening off. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I just want to say thank you to Stan Miller and Pete for, even though they have no Ukrainian roots, their heart is there for people of Ukraine, and they put tremendous effort to find ways to help Ukrainian people win this war, and I just really appreciate all that you do going beyond and above, finding resources and ways to help people that you're not affiliated with and just make a difference in the world. Thank you for doing that. I just would like to tell you a few things about Ukraine. So Ukrainian footprint in the world. So Ukraine is a significant producer of uranium, titanium, iron ore, steel, ammonium, and has a major source of Europe arable land. Ukraine grows more than 15% of global corn export, supplies half of the world export of sunflower oil, and you can even buy it in Walmart here in Conway. Ukraine and Russia supply more than a quarter of the world's wheat. Ukrainian population used to be almost 44 million people, but in 2023 it declined to over 36 million. And according to the leaked Pentagon documents, Ukraine had suffered between 124 million and 131 million casualties due to this war, and Russia lost between 189 million and 223 million, thousand people. This conflict displaced over 7 million people and forced 6 million to flee. And I don't know if a lot of people know, but there's over 8,000 children have been taken illegally to Russia, adopted by Russians, and raised as Russians. This is my uncle Vitalik. He's a retired emergency room physician, and my cousin Natasha, who is a lung doctor, and my cousin Sasha. So they grew up in this apartment complex, and this missile struck about 5 minutes from their home, and it took 46 lives. This is an apartment complex where I grew up, and this is my friend Lera. And this is her 2 children that she puts in a bathtub to keep them safe during the air sirens. And I don't know, every Wednesday around noon, around Conway Regional and across the Conway, the air sirens go off, and it's so loud. And I just cannot believe living in the conditions for almost 500 days where those air sirens go several times a day and raising children. This is my other friend, Tanya, that we grew up together. So, and this is her daughter, Karina, and Tanya is an accountant, and she worked very hard for all that she has in life, and she choosing to stay and believe in the victory of Ukrainian army. And those are 2 windows. Those are my windows where I grew up with my mom, my 1-room apartment. Also, there's a lot of people that had to flee their homes and came to other countries, and it's very hard. I came here 19 years ago, and it's been, a challenge because it's not your country, not your culture, not your language, and there's so many people that have to come and start over. So 8 million people crossed Europe, and over 4 million staying in Europe, and in the United States we have 271,000 Ukrainian refugees now. This is one of the families that live in Mountain Home. So this boy, Ivan, he came as an exchange student for high school in Mountain Home. And due to conflict, he couldn't go back, and his hosted family decided to go ahead and bring his parents over. So they came in, and she used to work for IRS, and he was working for a utility company, and now they work in Walmart because they don't speak English very well. But Ivan graduated, and he's going to the East Coast for the university. And this is another family, Shevchenko family, and they're here with us today. So Vita and Anatoly and their 2 sons. So Vita and Anatoly, they both have accounting degree, master's in accountancy, but they don't speak English. So and they're learning English, they're trying to find jobs, and they've been almost for a year here in Conway. So if anybody looking for a bookkeeper, Vita is your choice, or Anatoly is working on his CDL license, so hopefully they'll be able to find good employment here in the United States, and specifically in Conway or Little Rock. United States had helped Ukraine tremendously, and so has many other countries. And in 1994, Ukraine became nuclear weapon-free, so they signed Budapest Memorandum, giving away nuclear weapons, 3rd largest nuclear weapon arsenal in the world, to Russia. And Russia, Great Britain, and United States signed that memorandum guaranteeing freedoms, assistance in if Ukrainian territory will be ever attacked. So when United States and other countries definitely have brought a lot of help, and Ukraine wouldn't be able to fight without Western assistance. And for example, those Javelin missiles and Stinger portable rockets, some of those are produced right here in Camden, Arkansas, and they're just incredible that those people work every day saving lives back home in Ukraine. There's a lot of people that made Arkansas their home. So, and those are pictures we were celebrating last year, Ukrainian independence. with the other Arkansans who came from Ukraine originally, and Congressman Hill joined us, and it was really nice to hear from him what have United States government have been doing and how they've been assisting Ukrainians back home in Ukraine. This is a picture of my friend's daughter, Evgenia, and she was one of the kids in a bathtub. And so I just want to say thank you for all that you do to help Ukrainian people, Ukrainian soldiers win this war, because it matters for so many people back home and here in Arkansas. Thank you.
Thank you, Katya. You know, there's a lot of causes that we can give to. And one of the first criteria is it a worthwhile cause? And I think that's why we wanted to start tonight with who are we helping? And it's families, it's children, and it's a whole country. And so thanks to Katya, we really kind of got started and we understand who's involved in this. Now, after I did my Heart for Ukraine cards, I was working with a company in Little Rock called Pinnacle Legacy Law, and it's a law firm that sets up trusts for people, and they're really focused on not just the financial aspects of the trust, but they're focused on helping people build a legacy. And so when I told Stan Miller, the owner of this company, about my Heart for Ukraine, I could see it in his eyes. It's like, I want to get involved in that. And he did. He helped me some with that. But I could tell he was going to do something even bigger. And months later, I was meeting with him in his office, and he told me, I've got this idea to drive trucks to the front lines of the Ukraine battlefield. And I thought, oh my gosh, that kind of puts my little cards to kind of a small project, doesn't it? But he did it. And so tonight, the purpose of our meeting is to hear about his journey, and his passion will be unmistakable. And then for everybody on the live stream and in the room to ask the question, so what am I going to do? So Stan, tell us your story.
Good. Thanks, Pete. Thanks a lot, Pete. Yeah, it's true. Pete and I have been kind of conspiring together for, about a year now to try to figure out what we could do to be really useful to Ukraine. Because once you hear the stories and see what happens, you know, when you see people that are just attacked for no reason, just because of the ego needs of a dictator, and you see these people fighting for their lives, for their freedom, it inspires something in us, I think. And for me, I wanted to find something I could do. And whenever I stumbled on the opportunity to buy a car and drive it and hand the keys to a Ukrainian soldier, I thought, you know, I think this is the thing, because this is not like writing your congressman. This doesn't require a lot of bureaucracy. I can really do this. I can make the decision to do this, and I can go do it, and I can see the impact of my doing that immediately. And so I want to spend just 5 minutes or so walking you through some of the experiences I had on my trip. This was back in February. The guys that organized this are real heroes, in my opinion. Ragnar Sass and some of the other guys that you're going to meet in a couple of videos that we're going to show you are all based in Estonia. They're based there, and that's where this whole thing got cooked up. They dreamed up the idea because they discovered that while the NATO countries, including the United States, are really providing significant resources to help Ukraine win the war, there's some real gaps in what's being provided, and one of the gaps is just basic transportation. These guys don't have a way to move around the battlefield. They don't have a way to effectively move wounded soldiers from the front lines to the medics. And so these guys recognized, based on the feedback they were getting from the front lines, that what they really needed were trucks. And so they started working on this project to buy trucks not new trucks, by the way, to buy used trucks and refurbish these trucks and then drive them from Estonia to Kyiv. And that trip takes you from Estonia all the way through Estonia and through Latvia, through Lithuania, into Poland. And by the way, we did bypass Belarus. It took the long way around, but it's about a 35-hour drive. We started, and all the convoys that they do start on Wednesday morning, very early on a Wednesday morning, like at 6 o'clock. So we're on the road by 6 o'clock, and we're headed south, and we moved through Latvia, Lithuania, into Poland, and we got to the Poland-Ukraine border about 2 a.m. on Thursday, and that process took about 4 hours because we had to prove we really owned these trucks. We had to produce passports, and I would say that the border is not overstaffed at 2 a.m. So it took about 2 hours to get out of Poland, and then there's about 100 yards there you got to drive to, in no man's land to get to the Ukraine border station. So it took another 2 hours to get through there. So we arrived at the border about 2 a.m. and we were through both borders and into Ukraine by like 6:30 or so, headed east toward Kyiv. And Ukraine's actually a really large country, and so the drive from the border in the west to Kyiv is like an 8-hour drive. So we drove, and you'll see some of the vehicles. This is the vehicle I actually drove. All of our vehicles had these flags on the side that represented the country of the driver. We had drivers from Belgium, drivers from Ukraine, drivers from Finland, drivers from Estonia. So we had all those different flags on the trucks. We had 11 in my convoy. We had 11 trucks altogether, and so we're driving south 35 hours, and these guys are pretty disciplined about it. We stopped, for bathroom breaks and to refuel, but that was it. We allowed 20 minutes for the stop, and then we were all, back on the road again. And so we ended up, on Thursday afternoon in Kyiv. So we've been gone from Wednesday morning until about 5 o'clock or so on Thursday afternoon. And we did have a couple interesting things happen. One of the things that happened to me is, I think you may be able to see that these trucks are all painted up in camo, right? So whenever we pulled into a gas station to refuel, it was pretty obvious that this was something kind of interesting going on. So it was about maybe 30 hours into the trip on Thursday, and I'd been up the whole 30 hours. We're kind of trading off drivers, but you don't sleep that well whenever your buddy's driving, right? So I'm at a gas station, and we're all, we've been refueling, and I go into the coffee machine, and I'm pushing the buttons to get the coffee that I wanted. And while I'm standing there, this Ukrainian guy walked up to me. This just happened to be a guy that just happened to be in the gas station whenever we stopped. He walked up to me, and he reached over and he handed me his cell phone. He didn't say anything, which I thought was a little bit strange, but he handed me his cell phone. And of course, I've been up for 30 hours, and I'm not totally with it, right? And so I reached out and I grabbed his cell phone, and when I did, he started pointing to it. And I realized that he had the Google Translate app on, and he's pointing to me to point out the English translation of what he's trying to tell me. And I finally put it together, and I read what he said, and what he said was, "Thank you so much for what you're doing." And when I looked back up at him, he had tears in his eyes. This was a guy that just happened to be in a gas station whenever we pulled in, okay? So we all had things like that happen to us. Of the 11 cars, we had one mechanical malfunction, and it was my car. Wouldn't you know, right? The least mechanically inclined guy there. And so we actually, on these convoys, Regnar, who organizes this, actually does bring along 2 seriously qualified mechanics. And so whenever I managed to get off the highway they realized that we had this problem, so they come up right away they stop, they're behind me. They come up with their laptops, and they plug the laptop in, to do the diagnostics to figure out what's wrong with this car. And they're struggling to figure out what it is that's wrong. And while we're standing there, another car pulls up on the side of the highway, and this guy gets out, and he walks up to our mechanics, and he starts speaking Ukrainian to these guys. And what I found out later is he's telling them, I'm a mechanic, let me see what I can do to help. And so 20 or 30 minutes pass, they're under the hood, they're under the car, they're all over this thing to try to figure out what's wrong. And what this guy told them is, I know how to fix this, but I need to go back to my shop and make a part. And so he left, and we hung around for a few minutes, and in a few minutes he came back. He had a part, and he installed it, and we turned the key, and by golly, it worked. So we're pretty happy, right, that this guy who just happened on the side of the road has fixed our car. And so we started reaching for our wallets because we thought, we need to pay this guy for this. And at that point, this guy became visibly angry with us because we offered to pay him. So we got that. We got that. So we get to Kyiv with the cars. We put them on a parking lot, and on Friday, after a good night's sleep, we bring in the Ukrainian units to distribute the cars, and we also had a pretty good quantity of these high-quality American-made Goodyear mud tires, because it turns out there's a lot of mud over on the front. So we had the cars lined up, and we're bringing in these Ukrainian units one by one to hand the keys, and it took about 5 or 6 hours because we had 11 cars, and we did each one, each unit one at a time, so we could chat with them, have our picture taken, and have some actual interaction with these guys. And that was a big part of the experience for me, was being able to actually hand the keys to somebody who, I wanted to meet the guy that got my car, right? So we did that. And so while I'm standing there on Friday morning, they had told me that, that if you hear a siren, that means that they're Russian rockets. And so about 10 o'clock in the morning, I hear a siren, and, it must have been an interesting look on my face. I looked over to this Ukrainian soldier standing about 6 feet to my left, and he looked at me, and he gives me this hand gesture that really translates into, don't worry about it, we live with this all the time, it's not a big deal. And then it turns out that he was mostly right. Actually, the weapon systems that we provided Ukraine, at least around Kyiv, has allowed them to shoot down almost all of the Russian rockets that come in. Not 100%, unfortunately, and you probably have seen the press stories. There's some examples of people that have been killed actually because of debris, even rockets that were hit with with the Ukrainian missiles. The debris fell on people and killed them, but occasionally a rocket does get through. So it's not 100%, but the systems have really been pretty effective. So I got to experience that. I got to see what it's like to go into subways where people go whenever there's a real barrage of rockets. Subways are built so that they're really designed, I think, to be like nuclear bomb shelters, effectively, maybe 300 feet beneath the surface. The hotel we stayed in had a bomb shelter, which made me sleep a little bit better, I guess. But we spent all day Friday handing out keys to these units, and these guys, one by one, took these trucks and left and drove all the way to the Eastern Front. The trucks that we gave away were in battle, on the battlefield, on the front lines, that night or the next day. So everything, including the medical supplies, the blankets, because we did this in February when it was, let me promise you, it's cold in Ukraine. We also the guys began experimenting with using night vision cameras. We had 2 or 3 of those we put in these trucks, and it's turned out that those have been really, really effective, because now the guys are able to actually operate around the front at night with the lights off these trucks. So it's been developing. So it's trucks, it's medical supplies, night vision cameras, and a lot of Goodyear tires. So we stayed an extra day. We stayed an extra day in Kyiv. We didn't leave that night on Friday. We stayed into Saturday, and we took some time on Saturday to go visit an area in Kyiv that had actually been occupied by the Russians in February, March, and April of last year. An area called Hostomel and an area called Bucha. So I've got a few pictures I took of what it's like to see an area that the Russians took over. So when the Russians came in, they just like launched rockets at these civilian apartment complexes at a playground, and so there was quite a war there. So the Ukrainians eventually organized themselves and fought back, and eventually were effective at actually chasing the Russians back out. And in the process, they destroyed a massively large amount of tanks and trucks and equipment, jeeps and all those things. And so the Ukrainians have a junk pile like I have never seen ever anywhere in my life. And the pictures I have don't really do it justice. If you lined all this up, it's probably, I don't know, it's probably 3 miles of junk like that, 40, 50 feet high. So then we went to Bucha. And what we learned is that when the Russians arrived in Kyiv, they thought it was going to take about 3 days to effect this takeover, and then they'd have control. The Ukrainians would surrender. And what they found out after 3 days is that they didn't have enough food, and the Ukrainians had not surrendered. And so now you've got Russian troops that don't have food. And the solution the Russian troops figured out for this was just kill civilians. Just kill the locals and take their food. So we walked over to this Ukrainian Orthodox church that you see in this picture, and what we saw there were the trenches that the bodies had been buried in. So the Russians killed all the civilians in the neighborhood and just dumped the bodies in a ditch. So you've probably read about Bucha, maybe you remember that, made the news, and probably will be the subject someday, hopefully, of a war crimes trial. So these are the bodies that are being unearthed now by the Ukrainians. And that's a little memorial that some of the locals built with flowers to commemorate the lives of these civilians. So it was interesting to me to have the opportunity to do this. It was interesting to be able to be a part of something that was really larger than myself. The people that really put it together are some of the people I want to introduce you to. Ragnar Sass is really the guy who's the real quarterback of this. Ragnar is a rather famous Estonian entrepreneur. He founded a company called Pipedrive. It's a software product that's actually widely used around the world. He was not available. He was out traveling. Ragnar actually spends a lot of time traveling, raising money for this project. They've done up to, I think, as of now, 17 of these convoys. But I want to introduce you to a couple of people that are friends of mine who were very instrumental in this project. UC Escola is the guy that really I connected with initially, that got me really pulled into this project. Dmitry Nasinik, you're going to meet. Dmitry works in the same co-working station in Tallinn, Estonia, that UC works. And Dmitry's got a very hands-on role in this project now. And then you're also going to meet a Ukrainian military officer named, we call him Operator Starsky. Operator Starsky played a very key role in the war last year in chasing the Russians back out of Kyiv, back out of Ukraine. But he continues to be active in the military, and you're going to meet him. So I have a video interview that I did with these guys last Thursday, and it was too long, so we edited it down. So I'm going to play you some of the key parts. We're going to post the entire thing on our website so that if you want, you can really watch the entire interview. But I want you to meet Yussi, I want you to meet Dmitry, and meet Operator Starsky. I wanted to begin by asking you guys, and probably Yussi, I know I've heard you tell me the story before, but I wanted to begin by having you guys tell me how it is that you got involved in this project.
So how I got involved is that last year I was looking for some type of organization to try to support Ukraine financially through my own company, as well as fundraising with my own clients. And I happened to be working at this co-working office, Lift 99, and my desk was right next to Ragnar. And so I happened to see what he was up to. I got to talk with him about how I could get involved, and that's how I got started. I'm from Finland, and Finland shares also some history of unjust Russian aggression. You know, they invaded Finland during the Second World War last time. Also made up some reasons for invading Finland. Back then, they argued that Finland tried to attack Russia first. I mean, so a lot of similarities with Ukraine, creating false flag operations, attacked Finland, but Finland fought really hard and managed to remain independent while still losing some territories to Russia. But so we stand very strongly with Ukraine in big part because of this history. We understand what Russia is about. Same applies to most Eastern European countries, including Estonia, where I'm currently. We all suffer from this hard history with Russia, and so that helps us, you know, in today's events. Until recently, Finland wasn't a NATO country yet. We've been invaded before. If Russia had managed to just take over Ukraine, which we are very glad they didn't, but if they had managed to, most likely they wouldn't have stopped there. And so it was very important for all of us to get them to fail in their mission to take over Ukraine, because it wouldn't have stopped there.
So my name is Dmitry, yes, and I was born in Estonia, but my parents came from Ukraine, and it was similar to the UC story because I was in the same co-working, and I saw how Ragnar was. Unfortunately, he could not participate today, but I saw how Ragnar was doing this initiative of bringing trucks, and I just came to him and said, like, well, you probably need a driver. And he said, like, yeah. And I said, like, I know Ukrainian language. And he said, like, yeah, we do it like for several months and we don't know language, so it will be really helpful. And from that side, I just found a really working spot for helping Ukraine, because I did this journey at the first time, and by now I did it already like 8 times. I mean, like traveling from Tallinn to the Kiev, and I saw like soldiers, I saw real people, I saw their eyes of gratitude, and I mean, this is my impact to the war, to help to stop it. So I guess this is my biggest motivation, is to the way of helping Ukraine.
So what would you say to somebody who's asking you about somebody who said, maybe I'm thinking about driving in a convoy, thinking about buying a car, driving it to Kyiv? What would you say if they ask you about, to assess the risk of that?
I give you 99% chance that you will stay alive, and 1% that you will die very quickly due to unfortunate missile strike. But the possibility is very low, because Kyiv is a very big city. Every time we have a missile strike, and in case we are unable to intercept, for example, some missile or several missiles or Shahed drones, we know that they will reach their target and some civilians will die tonight, for example, sometimes we realize that it can be you.
Yeah.
But again, because city is very big, somebody else can die also.
I want to shift the conversation to talk about these trucks that Ragnar and Jussi and Dmitry and and the crew have been driving into these convoys. I'd like you to talk a little bit about how those trucks, what purpose those trucks serve, how are they used by the Ukrainian military?
Okay, so basically, right now we brought almost 200 trucks, and mainly the trucks is using for ammunition bringing to the front line and evacuating the wounded people because vans of the medical, they cannot access to the really off-road zones or front line of the zero line. So four-wheel pickup truck using his ability to drive this off-road to take the wounded guy and in the really quickly bring it to the roads where the proper medical van can take it up to the hospital. So this ammunition of ammunition, then evacuating wounded guys, and sometimes we have like special requirements. For example, right now we have drone units, so they using like mobile groups of drone squads. So they take their drones, go to the some points, and do their combat tasks over there. Or sometimes I know that some guys put the anti-aircraft rifles on the trunk and use it as anti-drone pickup as well. But those are really few number.
Yes, I would like to add to that, but
Yeah.
that our mobile group that belongs to our anti-air battalion in our brigade uses one of those trucks in order to be able to get deployed rapidly and intercept missiles, drones, things like that. And they work specifically at, operate specifically at the front lines right now.
Now you guys have done what, 15 convoys or so. How have the convoys changed over the last year or so?
Yeah, I would tell you this story. So yeah, basically you're right. We had this experience almost like 1.5 year, and if you compare the pictures of first trucks and the pictures of, for example, last convoy, which was number 17, and you can see a huge difference because in the beginning it was mess, and we brought like the possible was take right now. So we took a lot of trucks, and during the road till the Kiev, or that time till the Lviv, which is on the west, the car were stopped. So at that point we decided to check cars more closely, and the price started to grow because the more quality trucks should be, the more expensive they are. And one more thing is that because we are not the only one who brings the trucks, and the right now market is really empty, and in order to maintain the like affordable price, we need to go to the auctions from Sweden and get the trucks from there. And luckily there was still like opportunity to get those trucks. And this is what's concerning of just demand and supply. And one more thing that we changed is, like, in the beginning the trucks were just not painted. Right now we paint put the camo on every truck. And you said about the night vision cameras, which is like really like a simple solution, and we got the feedback that sometimes it's really crucial. You cannot use it like really close to the front line because red light is kind of visible, but if you use it like during the night, like couple kilometers, like 1-2 miles from the front line, you can see, you can use it really close and not be like saw by the Russians. And also we add the anti-mud tires, because like the trucks are good, but without proper tires, they can be stuck as well, especially in off-road of Ukrainian spring or autumn. So we to every truck we add those tires. And one more thing that we did in the last convoy, and I know that Starsky 4th Brigade also will receive the truck. We put polyarea and metal plates on the sides. So right now it's not like a tank. Of course, you will be like, if there would be proper shell, you would be wounded and maybe dead. But if it's just shrapnel or bullets from like not really close, a bit far away, you will be protected. So so you can really be, so we are developing our trucks in order to save lives of the fellows, because you know, Russians also getting smarter, even though everybody thinks that they're dumb, but they get smarter. And if we not continue to develop our project, I think like we gonna be like just outstanding. So that's why we not stop we're not stopping developing our trucks.
What do you tell Americans about the importance of the role that Americans can play in making a difference here?
So first of all, we know that the US is one of the countries that probably provided maybe not most, but a lot of support to our country, and maybe most, by the way. And Americans must understand one thing: Russia wants to destroy the US. It's not like I'm making it up. We always knew that. The US and Russia, aka USSR, were always rivals. And the difference between the US and Russia is that Americans realize that they can live peacefully in the 21st century with other countries through partnership, through trading, through international relations, things like that. Things that help you to develop, to become better, wealthier, stronger. Russians don't understand all of that. They hate the rest of the world, and they will do everything to eliminate Ukraine, then the European countries, and then the US, until Russia is ruled by the same regime, by the same person that, by the way, rules Russia for almost 20 years or something, until they believe in those basics of the so-called Ruski Mir, Russian world, until they believe in this Russianism, which is Russian fascism, Russian superiority. They will be trying to destroy other nations, other countries. They will be trying to destroy civilization and democracy. And there's only two options for us. Either you give up, and in several years, you will be witnessing your country welcoming Russian peacekeepers that will be killing people like they killed people in Bucha and Izium and Balaklia and other cities. Or you can try and fight. And by supporting Ukraine now, you are investing into your security tomorrow or after years. So that's basically one thing that I wanted to say. And second thing is we have underestimated the international support big time. Russians did too. But we didn't really expect that we will be so much supported by courageous and decent people from all around the world. And currently we realize that all those people who support us because they have hope, because they trust in us, we are very, very grateful to those people. And Ukrainians will never, never forget this.
Well, guys, let me just say, I appreciate the time. Appreciate the opportunity to visit with you guys again, to reconnect with you again. Had a great time with you back in February. I'm looking forward to doing it again. And hopefully we're gonna raise some money, buy some more trucks, buy some more tires, buy some more infrared cameras, medical supplies, blankets, other things. Although I guess it's summer now, we don't need blankets as much as we did in February. But guys, it's a pleasure connecting. I appreciate the time.
Thank you,
so much.
Stan, for organizing this, and whoever is listening to this, thank you very much also for considering this cause. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I would like to say also thank you for people that came to this event. They invested their time. Thank you for being that, not showing the empathy to the Ukraine. Thank you for showing empathy to Ukraine, because it really matters. So thank you for doing this.
One
Thanks,
last
guys.
thing I wanted to
Yeah.
add here. I mean, this is something I've told a few people before whenever I was, trying to raise money for the cause. Is, in my opinion, this is the best kind of charity you can find, because, in a lot of organizations, you make a donation, half of it goes into a bunch of different expenses to just overhead and some expensive rent of some fancy building or whatever. When you donate to this cause, I mean, it's really going to helping soldiers in the front line. It's we ourselves organize all of it. None of us are getting paid. I'm not getting a salary for doing this. I'm actually putting some of my own money to top up your own donation. Then we also take the risk and effort of going there, driving the cars ourselves. Again, we're not getting paid for doing all of this. So in my mind, if you think of this donation as an investment, this is really good value investment. You're getting a lot for your money.
Some great guys. So since I got back, I can tell you that periodically I get texts. We all have our WhatsApp app, and periodically I get videos from the guys on the front lines who are driving our trucks. And I've got a couple very short video clips I want to play you from the guys who actually are on the receiving end of these donations.
First of all, I want to say thanks to the NAFO community and Charity Fund 69th Infantry Brigade for this car you sent to us. I want to tell you a little story related to this car. When we were on the Bakhmut, we drove along the landing, and distance between the enemy was around 800 meters, and there were a lot of destroyed cars stuck in the mud. And at that moment I saw that this would happen to us, but this car saved my life and life of my comrades, and that's very cool when you can be sure that the equipment will not yet let you down and you will not die stuck in the mud. So thank you so much, guys, again. You are doing a very important job. Slava Ukraini!
This is an appeal to citizens of the United States, and especially to the 69th Sniffing Brigade from NAFO. We thank you for your support of Ukraine at this difficult time. At the West, you have freedom. We also want to be free. We do not want to be controlled by a dictator from another country. We are fighting right now for our lives and the lives of our loved ones. We are fighting very hard to push the Russian occupiers out of the country. The fight comes at a very high price. We are losing so many men every day. If Russia stops fighting, the war is going to end. If we Ukrainians stop fighting, Ukraine will end. We will never give up. But to be able to carry on the fight and carry out our combat operations right now, we really need more vehicles, specifically pickup trucks. Pickup carry our equipment, our troops. With your help, it's possible for us to win this war. Small donations make a big difference. We are forever thankful for your support, and we will never forget you who had our back during these trying times. Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!
So we made it really easy to contribute. You'll see in a second, there's going to be a QR code on the screen. All you have to do is hold your phone up. It's really, really easy to contribute. Where does the money go? The money goes to buy trucks, used trucks, by the way. These are not new trucks. As Dimitri was saying, when they started out, they were spending about $7,000 or $8,000 on trucks, but they broke down a lot, so they started spending more money. Now they're spending about $13,000 on a truck to get it refurbished and get the tires on it. So we're buying trucks, we're refurbishing trucks, we're buying tires, extra tires, spare tires, we're buying night vision cameras and medical supplies. Every single dollar contributed goes to buy those things. Nobody's being paid. Nobody's being paid salaries. There are no fees, no commissions, nothing. 100 cents of every dollar goes to buy those things, and they get delivered right away to the guys on the front lines. So some of you, I get asked occasionally, can I drive? Can I drive in a convoy? And that's a conversation that we're willing to have. We have upcoming convoys. There are 3 actually on the calendar now. We have convoy number 18 is coming up on the 5th of July. Number 19 is on July 19th. And then there's another one. The 20th convoy is scheduled for August the 9th. Convoys typically start from Tallinn, Estonia at 6 a.m. in the morning. You end up in Kyiv on Thursday afternoon, stay over till Saturday night, take a sleeper train back to Warsaw, Poland, and then fly home. So typically you would leave on a Tuesday, and then you'd be home by Monday or Tuesday. So it takes about a week to do this. It is quite an adventure. You meet some really interesting, very passionate, very dedicated volunteers. I made some friends that will always be friends for my whole lifetime. And it's it was a really interesting chapter. There is risk. The biggest risk, in my opinion, is driving 35 hours with a bunch of 20-something-year-old guys who how can I be polite about it? These guys, they want to stay on schedule. So we were blasting, and so that's the real risk. I think there's always the risk of being hit by a rocket. I think if you do the calculus, that's a relatively remote risk given the history. Still a risk. If you look at the State Department website, it says don't do this, but you do have that opportunity. And if driving in a convoy is something that interests you, let me know. We'll talk about it. I'm not a military guy, but my response to this was emotional. I see people fighting for their lives, and I want to help. And whenever I see a way that I can help, if I really can do it, I feel like I have to do it, right? So tonight, I wanted to bring another perspective to this conversation, the perspective of somebody who has a long and distinguished career in the U.S. military, and that's General Wesley Clark. He couldn't be here tonight. He's actually in Europe, but he allowed me to interview him briefly this past Friday from his home. Unfortunately, his Comcast connection was not functioning very well, and you'll see that in this video, but about 30 seconds after I concluded this interview, he bolted and ran to the airport, and so when I'm watching the news on Saturday morning about this revolution that was apparently happening, and he was commenting on it, he was already in Paris, wearing the same clothes, by the way, that he wore in this interview. General Clark was the Supreme Allied Commander of Europe, of NATO, from 1997 to 2000. He commanded Allied forces during the Kosovo War, retired 4-star general. And I asked him to comment about this and to really bring the perspective of why does this matter to Americans? Because so many times I hear people saying, it's not my war, there's a whole Atlantic Ocean between us and them, this doesn't matter to me, why are we committing resources to this? And I asked him to comment about that, and this is the response.
I'm retired General Wes Clark. I live in Little Rock. My heart right now is several thousand miles to the east in Ukraine. I'm with those men and women who are fighting on the front lines there. I know what they're up against. I'm with the commanders, General Zaluzny, whom I've met, and the others that I've worked with over the years that are fighting for their freedom. They're fighting for the rights to have a democracy free of influence, free of Russian interference, free of threats, coercion, blandishments, payoffs, bribes, and behind it all has always been the threat of assassination and invasion. And that's what they're dealing with right now. That's a fight that's not only for them, it's for us, because that's what we stand for. I was a staff officer in the Pentagon in the early 1990s when the decision was made by President Clinton to enlarge NATO. He didn't make that decision because NATO was looking for a bigger mission. He made it because of the East European governments who were begging him for protection from Russia. As one of the foreign ministers from Eastern Europe told me when I was NATO commander, she said, right now Russia's weak, but someday Russia will be strong again. And before then, we must be in NATO for our protection. Well, that country did make it into NATO. It's still under threat. But Ukraine did not make it in. When I was in Ukraine in 2000, still in uniform, the Minister of Defense told me, he said, we want to be in NATO. We want to be in NATO. And this was a guy who had been a general in the Red Army. He'd commanded a tank army that would have invaded, had he been given the order to do so, from Ukraine all the way to the English Channel. He said we could have been there in 5 days. He wasn't so proud of his service that he wanted to stay subservient to Russia, because all these people in Eastern Europe, they know that what the Russians are. They may look the same, they may all be white, but they're not the same. This is about Russian imperialism, 300 years of Russia overrunning its neighbors. And Putin really has no limit to his ambition. If it's not Ukraine, now it'll be Ukraine 2 years from now. And then it'll be Poland. It'll be the Baltic states. And we'll be in a full-fledged crisis with nuclear weapons, rearming, starting a draft, and being prepared to go to nuclear war if we don't handle Russia now in Ukraine. The administration said they want to help Ukraine so Russia doesn't win and Ukraine doesn't lose. That's good. That's good. But that's not enough. We've got to push Russia back out of Ukraine. And for that, Ukraine needs resources. It needs commitment, needs understanding, needs your love. These are people just like us. They just want what we have. They just want freedom. They just want an opportunity. They just want to live their lives free of Russian interference, harassment, and subversion. They know if they lose, there'll be no Ukraine. There'll be no language, there'll be no history, and millions of them will fall under the Russian knife and disappear. So they're fighting for their lives, their culture, their history, but they're also fighting for us. This is what we stand for. From the time that Eisenhower drew the line and said he was going to resist the expansion of Marxism, Leninism, of communism. This is what we did when we sent tens of thousands of Americans to Western Europe to prevent a Soviet attack during the Cold War. It's all a continuation of Russian imperialism today. This is what it stands for. This is what Ukraine is doing for us. They're fighting for our freedom and our democracy. So I thank you very much for being there with Stanley, for your support, and God bless Ukraine. Thank you.
There you go.
All right. Well, how about that? So we've taken it from a very personal position with Katya through this journey that Stan has gone through, and we've closed with a four-star general words. Just as kind of a back thought here, you know, from this podium, we had a Ukrainian poet talk about writing poetry in response to atrocity about the Ukraine war. We've announced My Heart for Ukraine, and we're really happy to have this here tonight. But the real question is, so what can we do? And I'm so thankful for Stan, who's really brought us to the front lines and has met people. In fact, Olga, who's the artist that I work with, that got the other artists to send their artwork, Stan met her when he was there. Stan bought artwork from her. She sent back a piece of artwork to me for all that we've done. So I just really challenge you here in the room. I challenge the people that are listening on the live stream. And I challenge the people who are going to listen to this once it's loaded onto or connected onto the carconvoy.org website. This is a great night, but it's really a beginning, but also a continuation of something that's very important. So I appreciate you for being here, and back on the screens and on the live stream page, you can see the QR code, and you can hit that. And if you donate here tonight, you can get some Ukrainian cards in the back. If you're on the live stream, you can order those at the website myheartforukraine.com. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Stan, for such a great story, and we look forward to the continuation. Thank you. We can't leave till the food's gone. I'm sorry. Okay. Good. We can go do that. Thank you so much.